What's up, guys? Auto Fanatics. So today's video, we have the 2014 Shelby GT500. I'm actually just going to take this car for a little spin. You guys are going to come along for a drive. I really just want to talk to you guys about something because it's very, very interesting. The car market is absolutely on fire. It's stupidity what's going on. People are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for like Japanese cars from the 90s, like a 300ZX or a Toyota Supra. Meanwhile, one of the only true muscle cars, the only muscle car in the segment with a live axle, manual gearbox ever produced by any of the big three automakers, it's kind of not really, doing anything with the market. People aren't buying these things for 100 grand. They're not going for big money on the auctions at Mecum or Barrett-Jackson. If you look online, there's quite a bunch of these, anywhere between 40 grand and 65 grand. And I tried selling this one a couple of times. I kind of gave up. Just too many tire kickers, too many people wasting my time. But the car is just awesome. It really, really brings back a true nostalgic feel of what a muscle car is. Big horsepower up front, live axle rear wheel drive, manual transmission, and a lightweight kind of package reminiscent of the cars from 1960. So when you get into this car, really what it is, it's like stepping back to 1966, 1968, and you picked up a GT500, whether it's a 428 Cobra Jet or something like that, but this is like a modern interpretation where you have airbags, you have pretty good safety, you have good brakes that actually stop you, and you have the creature comforts of air conditioning and everything else that works. And I just don't understand why these cars have not taken off on the market, and I don't understand why. And I just, maybe you guys have some feedback on that. Maybe, this just isn't appealing to our current audience of what's out there. And another thing too, what I noticed, I had the 350R and I had this for sale pretty much at the same time. The buyers for both cars are very, very different. So the guy that wants a 350R, he may have come from like a BMW M car, he may have a Porsche or other exotic cars, mostly European. And the guy that's interested in buying this is someone that's had Fox body Mustangs, older Mustangs, or even an earlier version of one of these. And it seems that there's no overlap between the early GT500 guys and the GT350, 350R guys. Very, very different audience. And I don't know why, but these things are freaking awesome. We're gonna strap the camera in. We're gonna go for a little bit of a drive today. Got some new tires on the car, and I'm gonna be doing a full tune-up on this soon. New coils, plugs, a whole bunch of stuff. But, I mean, check that out. Totally, totally old school. So we're gonna get in the car right now. We're gonna go for a little bit of a drive, and I'll talk some more about it. You guys could hear it. Car is super easy to drive, far more comfortable to drive than, my opinion, any of the S550 Mustangs. Even though it doesn't have the IRS, the car just rides better. It has more comfortable seats than my GT350R. And I also like the transmission better. The transmission feels a little bit better. I'll talk more about it when we get the camera in the car. But I mean, look at this thing. Deep impact blue, white stripes, full track pack. The car is freaking gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous car. And I think the used car market for enthusiasts, you guys are sleeping, man. You guys are sleeping on this thing. You guys are overpaying for slow cars from the 90s. These Japanese cars, these BMWs that freaking can't get out of their own way, can't do burnouts. They don't give you that exhilarating feel. People are paying 100, 200 grand for these things. And these cars are like underappreciated on the market. And I'm such a freaking hardcore muscle car enthusiast. I grew up with these cars. I've had a bunch of vintage Mustangs, restored them, Pro Toured, resto modded them, all of that stuff. I mean, this car is absolutely incredible. If you don't want to deal with building a $300,000 Pro Touring car and you want to kind of get that nostalgic feel, reliability, this is what you're going to want to get. So enough of that. Let's get in the car. We'll go for a ride, and you're going to come along and hang out with me for a couple of moments. All right, guys. So we're inside the last gen GT500 with a manual gearbox. Now, the new GT500, great car. I drove one and did a review on the channel. It's still really an amazing car for what it is. And the chassis got so much more confidence and grip, but this is the last, in my opinion, the last real GT500 because of the live rear axle. A lot of people are under the misconception like, oh, it makes the car drive like crap, ride like crap, but you have to understand, what is a muscle car? You really have to understand that. Muscle cars in the 60s, that's the muscle car era. That's when it all started. Live rear axle, big horsepower in the front, manual gearbox, usually in an economy grade type of car, like a car that was lightweight, not a lot of options. Like, back in the days, air conditioning, radios, all of that stuff. Tinted windows were like an option. But, and that's what made some of the greatest muscle cars from Ford, from Chevrolet, from Mopar. And this car really makes you feel nostalgic enough that it has that old school feel, but just enough modern technology because they did such a good job. Ford engineers did an amazing job balancing out this live rear axle chassis on this final generation. I think it's incredible. It rides way better than my GT350 and 350Rs. It just, in my opinion, it rides better than the S550 Mustang, unless maybe you're driving like an EcoBoost or like a base model. But if you're driving any like the performance pack cars or the Shelby models, in my opinion, on the roads that I'm driving on, this thing rides a hell of a lot better. The seats are also more comfortable because they don't have as deep of a aggressive bolster on the sides. So you get in it, the seating position is good, you feel like you're in a Mustang, you got the double brow dash, which is, you know, since 1965. And if you guys saw the new Dark Horse, the new generation Mustang coming out, they kind of did away with this and they made it look like a Mercedes S-Class. And I'm not a fan of that. I might do a video to talk about it, but I'm just not a fan about it, and I can't really get enthusiastic about speaking about that new model coming out. It's just really an updated technical facelift. It's not really a completely new car. I think if it was a completely new chassis, Ford engineers would be really romping the marketing and talking a lot more about that. But look, I'm not pushing through this corner the way I would in my 350R, just because it's a live rear axle, a lot of horsepower. Just feels awesome. Now the pedals in this car, just where they're placed, I don't think anybody, maybe some professional drivers could heel toe it. I couldn't heel toe it just by the placement of the pedals, but how many people really heel toed muscle cars in the 60s? It was really stoplight to stoplight, drag strip runs. That's what these cars were designed for, except this car has just enough handling and safety built into it to make it not like you're going to kill yourself all the time, but you still have to respect the power. And that's really what I love about it. I mean, look, it just pulls in every gear. It also has a very mechanical sound to it. You could actually hear the mechanical limited slip differential. When you let on and off the gas, you could hear some of the whine, which is like the backlash in between the gears. And that just really reminds me of a vintage muscle car. Even if you build, and I've built many, a bunch of high-end Resto Mod Pro Touring cars, you're still gonna get that feel and that noise and that little, you know, visceral experience. But you have to understand something as cool as like a 1968 Eleanor would be, or a 69 Mustang Fastback all Pro Toured out, the platform of the car, the bones, the unibody is still 40 plus years old. It's a tin can, and even though you could do all this awesome suspension work by Detroit Speed or Roadster Shop or whatever, if you guys know about Pro Touring cars, you know what I'm talking about. You could build an incredible car, but it's still not going to be a car you're going to want to get in and go to the grocery store, or go drive 4 hours, you know, have working air conditioning and a good audio system and no squeaks and rattles. That's kind of like where something like this, you know, between 45 to 65 grand, depending on the spec you buy and depending on the mileage, it's a freaking no-brainer. And I just don't understand why these cars have not taken off on the specialty car market. I just don't understand why. And I'm still scratching my head over it because it's such a bargain. Now, the same thing about the Dodge Vipers. You know, that thing was such an underappreciated car for so long. Now they're starting to skyrocket because people are starting to realize, well, you can't get the car anymore. Dodge is never going to make another SRT Viper. And the same thing with this. You know, what is the fate of the GT500 platform that we have now? Are they still going to make it with this new generation? Is it still going to be a supercharged V8, 700 plus horsepower? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe. We'll see what happens. But I think the government regulators around the world are really destroying things for the automotive enthusiasts and the automotive manufacturers because they're very, very limited. I mean, look, I just saw a new AMG, what is it? I think it's a C63, and now it's a 4-cylinder hybrid turbo. Like a C63 was always like a V8 muscle car, you know, version of a Mercedes. Now, you know, it's got the performance, it's got the EPA economy and all this other crap, but my opinion, the older stuff is going to be more desirable as the government regulators try to phase out fossil fuels and kind of ruin everybody's lives with this EV nonsense. So I'm not going to get into a discussion about this. We're not going to talk about politics. I don't want to get aggravated, but it's never going to happen, I don't think, in our lifetimes. And I don't understand why younger guys, you know, these guys that are buying up, I see it on Bring a Trailer. You follow the Bring a Trailer, you follow Meekum, you see cars like the Mitsubishi 3000 GTs from the 90s, the Nissan 300ZXs, the Mazda RX-7s, and they're going for stupid money. And then you see cars like this, and like a lot of them are no selling at the auctions, or they're just not bringing the money on eBay or cars.com, and there's a bunch of them, and I just don't understand it. And I just wanted to talk about it in this video because I hope somebody or anybody out there that watches this channel and watches this video, maybe this video will spark up enough enthusiasm for you to go out and look for one, go out and drive one, maybe put one of these cars in your collection or garage, because I'm going to tell you now, man, this is never, ever going to happen again. You know, so to have something with this transmission and that motor and live rear axle, it's never going to happen again. And the fact that if you don't want to deal with owning a vintage muscle car, like, you know, a Shelby GT500 from 1968, or any of those cars with, you know, the smell and the lack of safety, then this is probably going to be a better fit for your lifestyle. Because any of those old muscle cars, you're going to have to constantly tinker with them. You know, they're very sensitive. You can't beat on them too much. The bodies twist. Then when the body twists and you start chipping the paint on the doors, I mean, no matter what you do to them, it's still an old car. Even though everything else is new, you're still bolting all the new stuff to an old car. Whereas this, it's far more practical. You got the air conditioning on. I'm able to talk to you guys who got windows that actually seal and they don't leak when it rains, unlike a 1967 Mustang that no matter how you adjust the windows, you leave it out in the rain, you come back, there's a puddle in your footwell. But yeah, these things are just awesome. Awesome cars, underappreciated car, and it really is the only true muscle car. Even though, you know, the Camaro and the Dodge, you know, they're all muscle cars technically, but the Camaro became a great sports car with the Alpha platform. The S550 Mustang as well. They're great sports cars with a muscle car-esque attitude because of the motor, of course, and of course built by Ford. But then you look at the Dodge, incredible sounding cars, massive amounts of power, they sound great, but it's an independent rear suspension, you know, and it's just not what a muscle car really, in my opinion, is all about. That live rear axle, when you load it up and you get on the power and the car pushes to the left, that's how you know you're in a live real real muscle car with the live rear axle, when it kind of shifts you to one side, whereas the IRS will just hook up and boom, it'll throw you right out of the hole. You'll get better launch times, and these cars are not that good hooking up, but it's part of the experience. It's part of, you know, having a muscle car, you know, learning how to engage the clutch. And this clutch in this car, it's a lot stiffer than the twin disc setup that's in the GT350s and 350Rs. This one actually feels like an old school, you know, spring-loaded clutch. You know, it feels like an old school clutch. It's heavy. And the transmission, I like the way it feels better. So if you get a ball shift knob on a newer Mustang, it's a little bit larger because they have that stupid reverse pull-up collar. I don't know why they did that. I just love this transmission better. And this little area right here, where you can kind of get your finger in there and hold up on it, it just feels better when you're shifting the gears. I just enjoy this a lot more. It feels better in your hands. And the shifts feel very, very precise. Like, you really can't really miss the gears unless you're doing something really retarded. But I mean, look at this thing. I just, that was like quarter throttle right there. And I got the traction control on. So you can only imagine if you start taking the traction control off, this thing is going to go into the tree if you don't know how to drive it. And I kind of, you know what, I kind of like that, because it's a very different experience between my 350R or any of the newer Mustangs or even the new Camaros, because they're so predictable. They're so easy to drive fast. You know, anybody can get in them and beat on them, and, you know, you could do your thing. You could go to the track with them. But this car requires a little bit different attitude towards it. When you approach it, you have to respect it. Look, we're hitting some potholes, and it's not shaking the car apart. No rattles. This car's 8 years old. There's no rattles. And it's super, super comfortable. There's no active exhaust. This is take it or leave it, but it sounds great. So, like, you could be cruising, and they did such a good job tuning the exhaust that you don't get that drone. You know, that was always a concern, you know, with any of these cars. When you start modifying them with, you know, doing headers and custom exhaust, then you get that drone, and then you become hating the car, because when you get on the highway to go to a car show, it's it drives you nuts. But this is a car, you get in it, you cruise, you go to Cars and Coffee, you want to get an open stretch of road, you want to get on it, this is the car. You know, this is the car. It's going to give you that the muscle car nostalgia feel. And I just love it. And I really wish people out there go out there, buy these cars. I want to see these cars go up in value. I really don't understand what's going on with the market. I just don't get it. Look, we see what the market's doing with the 350Rs, going for 150, 120, 179. It's insane. And then I got people that want to buy mine, and they lowball me. So I just don't get it. But, you know, the 350R, extremely special car. I don't think we're ever going to get one of those again, and we're never going to get one of these again. So you have to take that with a grain of salt and really realize, you know, if you really want to get something for a long-term investment, I definitely think this car is going to, one day, something's going to happen. It's going to be like a light switch. It's going to turn on, and all of a sudden, these cars are going to be 80,000, 90,000, 150,000. I don't know when it's going to happen. Remember, I made my predictions on the Auto Fanatic channel 3 years ago, saying the GT350s are going to do that. Well, that accelerated much quicker than I anticipated because of the world events of 2020 and what happened, and the car shortages and everybody just being home, and you know, the rich people made quadruple their amount of wealth of what's going on, and there was a lot more money in the market, and people just drove those prices up based on supply and demand. I don't know what's going to happen that's going to bring this car up, but I hope to God that it happens soon, because I just feel it's such an underappreciated car. The engineers at Ford did such a good job with this thing, and it's a shame that, like, you could buy this thing for under MSRP now for what the original MSRP was, and I don't believe that's, like, fair considering what's going on in the marketplace. I don't get it. People are buying, like, E92 M3s. They're paying $90,000 for, like, low mileage ones, and I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Great car, but you know, they're a dime a dozen. There's tons of them out there. There's not a lot of these out there. I don't even know what the production numbers are of these cars. If anybody knows, post in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys. I never really researched that because, you know, Ford doesn't give a lot of that information when it comes to production numbers with the specs and the colors. It's a little bit hard to find, and I'm not sure why they do that. Maybe they overproduce the cars and they tell people it's limited. I don't really know. But we know, like Ferrari, you know, with their limited models, they seem to be cranking them out like crazy. Like whenever it's like a Ferrari Monza SB2 or a Ferrari Pista, they're just everywhere. There's so many of them. Every time I go to an event, I see dozens of them. So obviously, it's not as limited as they're, you know, claiming to be. But now this thing is cool, man. This car's got a big set of balls on it, and it's a great driving car. It really is. But yeah, I just wanted to take it out. I'm just road testing it right now. We're going to be doing a full tune-up on it soon. It just needs it, just from age. Plugs, coils, filters, all that stuff. And the car doesn't get driven. It sits in the garage, unfortunately. And then the car also needs a good detail. I may work on that soon as well. I mean, it lifts up just a little bit, but the suspension is so well tuned, man. Yeah, on a public highway, you got to be careful. There's a lot of cars on the road, so I'm not going to drive it like a maniac. But it's so comfortable. Like, I'm driving it with one hand, and I'm not fighting the wheel. There's no tram lining. You know, the power assist on this car of the steering, it's okay. It's not as good as the newer Mustangs, but it's okay, and it just seems to work. And they do have different modes. You have comfort, normal, and sport. The suspension in sport is a little too bumpy, but I absolutely love this car, man. Such a great car. It doesn't have that flat plane crank roar. It's not rattling your dash apart based on the NVH, because this engine is more conventional. The way the firing order is set up and everything else. It's a very well-tuned machine. So, like I said, I just want to take the car for a little ride, talk to you guys about the 2012 to 2014, the last generation GT500s. Post in the comments below if you guys know what's going on. If you're an owner of this car or any of these cars, hold on to them. I'm telling you, it's going to happen sooner than later. We'll see what happens with the world events that we have no control over in life. I think these cars are undervalued now, and I think a real enthusiast should really start picking up the low mileage cream puff examples like this one. If you could find them out there, you know, buy one that's not modified and beat up. You know, don't buy a high mileage car unless the car is cheap and you just want to, you know, beat it up and throw it away. But I think these cars are going to go through the roof one of these days, unless the government's completely outlaw gasoline in the future. Then these things are going to be like relics that are going to be sitting in a museum somewhere. I have no idea. They're going to be telling the young generation, like, yeah, back in the days we had cars that ran on gasoline. I hope to God I'm not around when that happens. But thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed to the Auto Fanatic channel. Stay tuned for more content. Always visit the Auto Fanatic website to support the products and services that I offer to you guys out there. And once again, thanks a lot for coming for a ride, and I will see you guys in the next video soon. I'll be taking the 350R out maybe tomorrow, depending on the weather, and I'll be doing another drive video for you guys. I haven't done that in a while on the channel, and I'll talk to you more about that and some more thoughts and ideas as far as a car that I may replace that car with. I don't know yet. The problem is I'm running out of garage space, and I'm tired of paying to have cars all over the place. I may sell the 350R in lieu of another badass, awesome car. But subscribe to the channel, stay tuned, set your alerts, and I'll see you guys in the next video soon. Thanks, guys.